Hello, everyone. Good morning. Well, good morning. Let's start. My name is Anna Hanschu. Some of you know me already from yesterday because yesterday we started the international track within the BRIC Summit, and we had another session with an impact investor from Luxembourg, and a young entrepreneur from France. And today we continue all these sessions. And I have the pleasure to welcome an investor from Finland, an entrepreneur from Finland. So let me introduce my two panelists. Before I start, please feel free to put in your questions already in the chat. And I will just have a look at that while we talk, and we'll take your questions during the conversations if this just fits. Otherwise, we do it at the end. But no worries, we will get back to your questions. All right, welcome to the session From Lab to Market: How to invest in science-based and deep tech startups, and how to grow a science-based and impact-oriented startup. Let me start with a lady, Dr. Laura, you correct me if I do not pronounce it correctly. Tirkkonen Rajasalo.
Perfect, yes.
Co-founded Sulapak with Sufi Haimi. The Sulapak material is a fully biodegradable packaging material made of wood and 100% biodegradable adhesive. At Sulapak, she is Director of Quality. I have to look at your title, Quality Assurance and Regulatory Affairs, and her background is in biochemistry and molecular biology. She did her PhD in stem cell and tissue engineering, all what I have no clue about, so it's really interesting for me. I will learn a lot. She has led research and development projects in innovation implementation at universities in Finland and Switzerland, as well as for the European Commission. Let me see. Before founding Sulapak together with Sufi, they both were actually colleagues, and they realized that becoming entrepreneurs was a great opportunity to fight plastic pollution. In 2016, Sulapak was founded, and Laura was the key person in developing the first Sulapak material innovation and patent. And while I'm introducing you, I have three other people in the waiting room. Wait a second. We have a little bit of a challenge this year because we need so many people at the same time, online and offline. So we need really to do multitasking. All right. Okay. Pontus, welcome. So thanks for joining, because most of you probably expect Inka Mero, but Inka couldn't make it today. But we have Pontus, who is partner also at Voima Ventures. Voima Ventures is Nordic's leading deep tech venture capital firm. He's himself a serial entrepreneur, also an angel investor, and a startup coach. He is an entrepreneur at heart and spirit, and an expert in investing in artificial intelligence, food and agri-tech and medtech. What brought him to the startup scene was the passion that drives people to take action into their own hands and solve problems through ventures of their own. I think there are quite some who would share this passion here in the crowd. In 2019, Pontus joined Voima Ventures, where he is combining his expertise with world-class scientists and research, and he's also a board member at 7 different startups. It's correct, 7, or is it 8?
I'm sorry, I haven't counted them lately. You get quite many. I think it's 8 actually. But
all right, okay. And he is also, for instance, sitting at the board of Solar Foods, which probably some of you know, which is also a portfolio company from Voima. So, well, let's get it started. Pontus, can you share? Well, just 1 second. We will have 2 presentations because we thought it makes sense. These are both relatively complex topics, and we do short presentations, and afterwards we do questions, and at the end we have all together, and we can hopefully have a nice conversation. So, stage is yours, Pontus.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I will share my screen and a presentation then. So thank you for a good introduction. I have been actually an entrepreneur almost all my life. So I really do it because of the entrepreneurs. It is so much fulfilling to work with great people who have a passion and the ability to take the risk to take like their future in their own hands and start a company. But Voima Ventures, we are solving exponential problems through entrepreneurship and science. Now, we all know that the world is facing huge challenges in the coming decade. A venture capital fund has a 10-year lifespan. So we started in 2019 and started to think, what are the problems that we need to solve in the coming decade? We thought that the tools to do this is to combine entrepreneurship and science, and that's why Voima Ventures was then founded. Inka Mero was our managing partner together with Mikko Kumpulainen. They were quite excellent in selling the fund, so they got the first close and had a really nice fund, but they needed partners to work on it. So I had known Inka for quite a while, and I was really enthusiastic about the strategy. So then I called her up and said that if there's a vacancy, I'd love to join. And we had a first close in halfway of 2019, and I think I started in August 2019. We have now grown into a company with 4 full-time partners, a few venture partners and analysts. So it's already really starting to look like a real venture capital company. Well, what is our view on deep tech? There are a lot of scientific research going on that can come up with any kind of new innovation, of course. We want to commercialize this. This means that we are industry agnostic in a sense. We don't look for certain industries where we would like to invest. We look where each sort of geographical area or university has a competitive advantage. Is really on the cutting edge of research in that field. That is what we try to sort of analyze that quite a lot. And then when there is an innovation, we try to be there already before the company spun out to coach and support these scientists to take that innovation and spin it out to commercialize it through a startup. There are, of course, many special considerations in these deep tech cases. First and foremost, when you look at the way we invest, they are quite often actually good solutions looking for a problem, which is not perhaps the typical start of a company, right? Usually you have a problem and then you start to think how you would solve that. Now in deep tech, it is actually quite often the case that you have an innovation and then you start to think how can you, or what can you solve with this innovation? And that makes, I think that is one of the biggest reasons why deep tech has a longer time span than a regular company. You need to put extra emphasis on building a team who can really turn that innovation into a functioning product that solves real customer problems. So the road to that product market fit is a bit longer in deep tech, and you need to have patience when you start a company in deep tech. You need to understand that it's a longer road and build a team accordingly, build your financing strategy accordingly. We do think that the competitive advantages that patents and other IP gives these companies are worth that extra longer period of time. Nowadays, when you look at startups, there are so many startups doing different things. I mean, whatever idea you throw out there, there's always tens of startups doing just the same. Now, some of them will become really huge companies, I'm sure. But really identifying in the spin-off, in the really, really early stage, which one will, that is something that I personally struggle with. But when you have a world-class team that has come up with a true, genuine innovation and has built an IP portfolio around it, then our hypothesis is that you have a greater shot at reaching the stars. So we think that the mega trend to grow portfolio value is now. I mean, you have these key drivers in society where you have resource scarcity, climate change, circular economy, and all of this is really pushing a change in society. While at the same time, you have these tech domains where you have big data and AI, advances in optics and imaging, biomaterials, new materials, IoT and sensors, they are all evolving at an extremely fast pace. And that when all that comes together in the next decade, we believe that we will see a lot of new growth coming out from deep tech. So what does the Nordic venture capital market look like then? There aren't that many deep tech funds in the very early stages. There have comes up some. There are climate funds, which most of them, I would say, invest in deep tech. But there you have to understand like the difference. I have another slide coming up. What is impact, what is climate, and what is deep tech. But certainly investors have a new appetite for deep tech, something which they perhaps didn't have like just 5 years ago when software was truly eating the world, they said. But if we look at the largest Finnish venture rounds in the last 12 months, we do see quite a lot of deep tech there. ICEYE, for instance, is a company shooting nanosatellites up into space. IQM is a really early start, but a fascinating one into quantum computing. Spinnova is a really excellent cellulose-based textile fiber company. We have Solar Foods, where I'm a board of directors, a member of the board of directors, doing a really, really sustainable new protein. Dispelix is also in our portfolio. They do this AR lens that has the potential to really bring great quality AR to the masses. So we really see that the deep tech is on the rise. At the same time, of course, the venture capital market in the Nordics has grown quite a lot. But if you take the whole of the Nordics and the Baltics, you come up with a number of roughly $7 billion US dollars. If we compare that to, for instance, Israel alone, I think that it's a bit more than half, but not much. So one can speculate that the need for more venture capital is something that I can at least imagine. Particularly if there is a stronger shift towards deep tech, because deep tech really does have that longer road in the early stages, and therefore you need to reserve heavier financing in the early stages for those startups. We have over 10,000 startups in the region. Finland is actually leading in VC investments when measured by as a percentage of GDP. We have many unicorns. Estonia is, if you, for instance, measure unicorns per capita, it's the world leader. They are completely crazy with unicorns. As a Finn, I must say I'm happy but a bit jealous at how fantastic companies are coming out from Estonia all the time. I think that the deep tech scene, though, is sort of a bit centered in Sweden, with Norway and Finland supporting. I think that we have a good tradition of industrial companies in these three countries, and deep tech, the ecosystem required for deep tech companies are quite strong in these three countries. Then it's of course also a question about talent, because at the end of the day, that is what matters. So we also have a lot of engineering talent in all of these three countries. One of the key elements of Voima Ventures is our unique partnership with VTT. So we have two portfolios. The first portfolio is one that originated fully from VTT, called VTT Ventures. At some point, VTT, when they had started doing investments into their spin-offs, they realized that they wanted it professionally managed. So in 2019, when Voima Ventures was set up, we took over the management of the VTT Ventures investments. So it is fully separated, the investment decisions from VTT. But of course, this gives us a very special relationship, because it is a special fund in that sense that VTT is the only LP in that fund. It has 17 deep tech companies still in that portfolio. And we then sit on the board and manage those investments. Our second fund is one where VTT is an anchor investor, but also the European Investment Fund is a second similarly large LP. And then we also have some family offices on board. In the second fund, we try to follow a similar investment strategy to that of VTT Ventures, but we don't have a mandate to only invest into VTT spin-offs. We invest into any Nordic or Baltic university spin-off. Furthermore, we've also a bit broadened the investment strategy so that we can invest into any deep tech company, regardless of sort of their where the innovation was made, as long as we find the innovation impactful enough. So having these special relationships with universities and research organizations is really vital, in my opinion, in the early stages of deep tech investments. Our investment hypothesis is that we can add quite a lot of value in the early stages when we can get these scientific teams pointing in the right direction of commercialization. And in startups, it is about, the direction, where you're heading and how fast. So there we feel that the early stages can have a huge impact. Most of our deal flow then comes from these universities, but also a significant portion comes from other sources. I think it's roughly 1/3 of our portfolio companies in the second portfolio that are innovations done by people who aren't affiliated with universities. And we have great sort of water purifying technologies, for instance, that entrepreneurial team just came up and patented, and we think that it's fully okay. The reason why we don't want to tie our hands too much to universities is to make sure that when we have already narrowed down on our deal flow quite a lot when we are only investing into deep tech. This way we can truly find the most interesting deep tech cases and invest into them. We have excellent companies. I think I've already spoken for 10 minutes. So, but here you can see that really the fantastic companies are AR, printed electronics, new materials, novel proteins. It's roughly 50-50. Many of these are really fantastic innovations that will have a huge commercial impact, but roughly half of them will have a fantastic impact on climate as well. And here, of course, when you see the division between deep tech, it's not necessarily climate or impact, but when successful, a very large portion of the startups that we've invested in will have a huge climate impact. Particularly if you look at our latest investments, I mean, we really do look for impact. Enifer Bio has a novel protein that's really sustainable, and Adamant Health is doing Parkinson's research. In Betolar, we have a concrete that's really sustainable. So trying to solve all these large problems that humanity is facing in the coming decade is really our definition of deep tech. Thanks. I hope I didn't go too much over my 10 minutes.
Thank you very much for this. And I see that we already have quite some questions. I would like to add perhaps something which I found yesterday, and I thought this is really interesting. This is from a report from Hello Tomorrow and BCG. And I was myself surprised about this, some numbers. Here they write, successful deep tech ventures are problem oriented. Very often they work on solving large and fundamental problems. 97% of deep tech ventures, probably roughly, contribute to at least one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So this is really interesting, and this is also where one of your points you made, and also Inka Mero made, and in her former presentations. I would like to start with a rather provocative question. perhaps you end the screen presentation. It's a beautiful picture. But I think this was Finland. That. This was Finland, right? From
I think it is Finland. I'd have to ask our marketing manager, but
all right. No, actually, I would like to start, and then I would also check immediately the chat. But what for me is so interesting in your approach is that that there I find some answers, at least, on the question is what actually went wrong in the whole tech ecosystem. That many of tech companies basically missed or paid little attention to the opportunities to have a positive impact, and which does not only mean really actively harming, but also missing out all the opportunities and the huge business opportunities. So, well, perhaps you share your personal view on that. This is really
yes. I also think that it is a shame, but of course we must remember that the smartphone it brought a fantastic economic opportunity for startups. You could just invent these, birds that were angry that you would catapult, and they would, like, on your screen kill these angry pigs. I think were the happy pigs. The smartphone came in and made this huge economic opportunity from these fairly simple software solutions. And because of that economic opportunity was so large, it unfortunately shifted away the attention of investors from the things that really mattered, in my opinion. So in a way, I'm not sure if it was that investors didn't see these opportunities as much as they saw really fantastic opportunities elsewhere. Gaming companies have been really successful, both in Finland and in Sweden. But really honestly, if we talk about the impact, I'm afraid they are more negative than positive.
Mm.
Also, I think that in deep tech, you really have to be quite careful in knowing when the timing is right. There was somewhat of a clean tech boom. You used to call it clean tech roughly 10 years ago. And I think that some of the technologies could have been mature enough, but consumers perhaps weren't eager enough, governments weren't supportive enough, and all of that perhaps meant that the timing of that boom wasn't optimal.
Yeah.
I strongly believe now that we have a huge demand from consumers, and we have a very strong support from government, and we have technologies mature enough to be commercialized. And that is why we think that the coming decade will really be the boom in deep tech investing.
Okay, sorry, I just lost the connection, but now you're back. Right. And because I think we have quite some entrepreneurs also in the audience, I expect a lot. Just to have it again crystal clear. So you start really at the seed stage, right? And then you
Yes.
go until Series A and B?
Well, it depends a bit. I mean, we are a 45 million fund. The best cases, they actually raise ridiculous amounts, so that with a 45 million fund, you can't really impact the funding round. Yeah. But we definitely can continue supporting the companies all the way till the exit. But our entry ticket, our first ticket, that can be from really the pre-seed, but it can actually also be in a bit later stages, depending on the companies that we meet. In early stage venture, it's of course a bit difficult because the visibility to your deal flow is so short. So you have to have some flexibility in your investment strategy so that you really can invest into the most interesting cases.
Yeah. And now you're in, well, yeah, you already told that, and this was also for me, though I had some questions on that, but learned more now. Though your focus now is really Nordics and the Baltics. What about other regions of Europe? Because, well, in the Netherlands you have the Dutch Institute, in Germany you have the Fraunhofer Institute, but I imagine that in a way your work is very much linked to the structures. So this remains challenging. Or how does, well, for instance, if there's an entrepreneur coming from Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, is that interesting for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, of course it would be interesting, but in startup investing, it's all about the deal flow, and you have to be a bit like skeptical why a researcher from Fraunhofer, because we know that there are great VC funds there as well, why they would ask for money from a Finnish VC fund. Of course, we have good connections to future financiers, and we are actually, we have written a term sheet just recently from a UK fund, from a UK company, sorry. So we are looking into, and we certainly think that we can help any startup from Europe, but still it's about the deal flow. Can we be certain that we really look at the most interesting Fraunhofer cases? Because, I mean, those are the ones we would like to invest in if we would go to Germany, for instance.
Yeah.
So you can't be too passively just waiting for the inbound leads in startup investing. You really have to look outwards. And at the moment, our resources are I think that in Finland, we have the best deal flow visibility, and we have an excellent one in the rest of Scandinavia and the Baltics. But we really don't know what there is in Germany. So just investing into something that would call up from there doesn't seem like a good investment strategy.
Okay, but are there comparable companies like Weimar Ventures, really also with this scope and this impact-driven mission? Or
I think that in the early stages, they tend to be more local. Then in later stages, there certainly are. And of course, in later stages, you get also more regular funds with a general investment strategy. So EQT from Sweden, of course, they are doing fantastic investments. Okay, they've done a lot of gaming, but certainly also deep tech. So in the really early stages, I think it's important to be present in the universities in really meeting almost the teams before they set up a company, so that you can be convinced of the research and the technology.
Okay, that's interesting. So because the local factor plays a significant role, that you're close to it, something, and that you also have the knowledge from the local market. Okay, interesting. Thanks. Thanks a lot. I will just have a look at the chat. Let me start. Where does the question start? Oh, here. When you have a technical innovation, how do you find the niche where your solution has a great advantage over existing solutions?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And that is part of sort of the problem where you have a solution looking for a problem. We do it by really trying to build networks with the startup team into industrial players. We try to bring in expertise both as employees, so we help the teams in recruitment quite a lot. But we also try to open up doors to corporations and help them then to really become customer-oriented, customer-centric. That is sort of a shift that you need to work on in deep tech in the early stages. And if you're able to do that, then I believe that you can shorten the path towards that product market fit a lot. But I think that there's no magic pill. One thing with deep tech, I mean, there are many great startups who have been disrupting existing sales channels, for instance. I don't think that that is what deep tech is most about. And that's why really bringing industry know-how into the team and customer understanding is something that brings a lot of value.
So, and I think from the same Niels Valtin, I'm just checking, if your product is a solution to a problem that the target group does not feel the pain, is there a chance to educate the target group market about the benefits of your technical solution? For example, if you offer better knowledge management solution to capture workers' knowledge, to train new employees, most companies leaders rather take the risk to lose the knowledge of an employee when he leaves. How to convince them of the benefit of not taking the risk, but rather invest in knowledge management?
A chance to educate the target group market about the benefits of your technical solution is possible, but it is a really long way. And here is one of the challenges with deep tech. I think if you are in a situation where the benefits aren't clear, then you need to continue to work on the product to really find that product market fit. However, and I think this is one thing where early stage deep tech can have greater returns than others. Quite often the case is that the company can't do this. They don't have the right skill sets, but the innovation can still have value to existing companies with that product offering that customers really understand. And therefore, we see that in deep tech, we can have a larger portion of early exits into corporations. But in all honesty, instead of educating a large customer base, a quick exit to a player who already has a product with that where consumers or customers understand the benefits can be a better strategy.
Okay, thanks. And then there are still, I think, rather, I'm not sure if I understand the questions correctly. I think there are rather two questions in one. Someone is in an environmental lab, apparently, in China, and wants to public my lab to children, do STEM class. Now I do the research using data or blockchain management lab. And then the question at the end is, want to teach the workers how to do or experiment safely and give them some class. So I think there are two target groups, kids and workers. Not sure if I understand this correctly, what the question is. Perhaps you you would like, Pondus, do you get it, or is it just that my problem?
I think it's more of a presentation of the person, what they are doing.
So okay, if you can put the question in one or make it more clear, then I'm happy to ask it. But for now, I do not see other questions in the chat. I have one which is interesting, I think, also because we have quite some female founders, and we have also people with a science background in science. I'm curious, like, do you see more female founders in this? And this is actually immediately already the link, of course, to Laura. But do you see more female founders in science-based startups? I mean, coming from science and then making this step, becoming an entrepreneur?
In all honesty, I'm not sure. That's my honest answer. Intuitively, I would say that we see a lot of male founders in deep tech as well. But then we have excellent female researchers in the Nordics in particular. And we have seen some for instance, we invested into this team that are using stem cells to cure eye diseases called StemSight. And that was a completely female team. But I mean, unfortunately, we can't say that our portfolio would be perfect in diversity. I still hope that well, first of all, that females would want to take and start more companies. But also, I think that we as investors need to be educated on diversity to make sure that we don't only invest into founders who look and feel like ourselves. I mean, that's the general trap in investment, I guess. 40-year-old males wanting to see themselves in the seat who they're talking with. And well, at Voima, we do educate our team against that kind of biases in team adjustments. So I think that the work is definitely not ready yet.
Yeah. Okay.
If I can have a comment, because
go ahead.
It's funny that Pontus mentioned this StemSight, because they actually come from the same university where Suvi and I were doing research. So I know these people very well, and there must be something exceptional in the University of Tampere, because there are these female startups or researchers who start companies are coming from there. And I was thinking about it, and to me personally, one thing that had a very big impact was that in that university, there were a lot of research groups that were led by women. So I think into some exceptional degree. And I think that was a very good example for myself, at least. I saw that, hey, these women are leading these research groups, and I can be a leader as well. It's just that so we chose this different kind of path than onto the entrepreneurial side. But yes, very nice that Pontus mentioned this STEM side as well. Very happy for them.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you're saying. So again, you have the case of you cannot be what you cannot see, and then you see an example, and this is inspiring. Laura, let's dive deep immediately into Sulapak, because Sulapak is just a great company, and I think everyone will be impressed. Can you share your presentation with your prepared?
Yes. So, are you now able to see it?
Yes, perfectly. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, it wasn't in the. Oh, now it is. So the topic already says our mission at Sulapak, so saving the world from plastic waste. And it also says together, because the plastic waste problem is so huge that in addition to material innovations like Sulapak, we also need other solutions to really tackle this problem. And to put some numbers on it, and let me check how to move the next slide here. So currently the production of plastic is about 300 million tons every year. And it has been estimated that around 20% of that plastic produced worldwide ends up in the environment uncontrolled. And that is 60 million tons per year. And out of that, 10 million tons end up in the sea. And despite of the knowledge that we have this huge plastic waste problem, the production of plastic is not slowing down. But on the contrary, by 2050, there will be 4 times more plastic in the world. And while recycling is necessary, it is not still enough to tackle the plastic waste problem alone. At the moment, less than 20%, so 10 to 15% of plastic produced globally is recycled. And even with the optimistic view, it could be like 37% in the future. But for example, currently, 40% of the recycled plastic is so contaminated that it will just be burned. And all of us are very aware of the climate change and probably also of the plastic waste problem, but maybe not so many have heard about the microplastic problem that we have. So microplastics can form when larger plastic degrades into smaller and smaller pieces, but they are also released during the production of plastics and during the use of plastic items. And these plastics are so small that they can pass through the water filtration systems, for example, and therefore you can find it in the drinking water, but basically everywhere. And a study found that on average, we eat about 5 grams of microplastic in a week, and that equals the amount of credit or the size of credit card. And even if there's not really scientific consensus yet about the health effects of microplastics, there have been some very alarming findings recently. And just an example, in one study, microplastics caused human immune cells to die 3 times faster than normally. And when you realize really the damage that the plastic waste does to nature and what it potentially does to yourself, and even worse to your kids, you start to look for alternatives. And this is what happened to me and my colleague, Suvi. So as an answer, we developed Sulapak. It's a sustainable material innovation, which is a lot like traditional plastic, but without the harmful impacts on the environment and with smaller carbon footprint. And in the right conditions, these biodegradable and compostable materials that we develop, they start to biodegrade with the help of microbes. And therefore you can recycle it via industrial composting. And all our materials have been developed so that they biodegrade without leaving any permanent microplastics behind. And this we also test under the very harsh marine conditions. In addition that we design all our materials to be sustainable, we also, from the very beginning, we had this vision with Suvi that they also need to be beautiful, so to stand out. And of course, they need to be functional, so to ensure that it works in the application they are meant for. So being sustainable is not only enough, so you need to have all these 3 qualities. And Sulapac also has superior scalability because we use the existing plastic factories globally. This is our portfolio. Currently, we have 5 focus areas, 3 in the packaging side, including cosmetics, supplements, and luxury packaging. In addition, we have single-use products like the straw and cutlery. And recently, we have also developed this durable range, which can be reused, but leaves no permanent microplastics behind. In addition, we do constant research and development to expand our material library. And sometimes we also do very customer-specific things. Here's an example how we've been able to prove that we can really match the most demanding requirements by developing a sustainable perfume cap to Chanel. And with this introduction, I thank you and also welcome questions from Anna and all of you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Can you close the screen? I mean, your presentation is still online. Oh yeah, excellent.
Great.
And now I can see you again. Great, thank you so much. Well, Sulapac, I have to admit, I discovered Sulapac, I think 2 years ago, and this time I'm following you, and I'm, well, I was impressed since I first learned about the material. But now, of course, we have the possibility to also ask you questions. Once again, to the audience, please just put your questions in the chat, what you might have. In the meantime, I make use of the time. So you showed this picture where it's basically in the process of biodegrading. Would this mean that I can just throw my packaging on my compost, or for how this works?
So yes, basically you're good. So the material starts to biodegrade in the certain conditions and with the help of microbes. But we do prefer industrial composting. So you would have to place it in the bio-waste collection. And of course, in some places, the infrastructure is not available. So for that reason, we are also developing different or other recycling options. So the second best option would be to put it in the plastic recycling. But we also investigate, for example, chemical recycling and take-back systems.
Yes, so this is interesting. I learned about that. I said, well, it's biodegradable and you still need a take-back system. I understood that there's also the whole EU structure behind and the recycling facilities and all these facilities to process it, actually, the waste, which is, of course, no waste. So why is then this needed? Is this take-back program? Because now I understood this is only in Finland, right? The take-back program.
Well, currently we are demonstrating it in Finland with our customer Leader Foods. But basically, it's one recycling option that some brands have found very useful. So we do recognize that it's probably not for everybody, like not for all the brands, but it's very useful for some of them. So this is what we are now demonstrating in Finland. And also the other thing that we want to demonstrate by this is that in the market, it has been discussed that no, you can't do this with the biodegradable or compostable materials. And we want to demonstrate that really, actually you can. And we have done studies at the VTT and found that our material can be mechanically recycled 5 times, at least 5 times. So this is something that we first want to...
Without losing quality?
Yes.
Great, okay.
So we went up to seven rounds and
wow.
start to see some changes. Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Just for the audience, I assume that not everyone is informed what VTT is. VTT is sort of the Fraunhofer in Finland. I think this is important. You showed us your portfolio, and I know that Sufi is always telling the story on the, what is it again? Mojito, right? Is it?
Yes.
There, of course, now you have a portfolio which is in packaging for supplements, and you have cosmetics. What about the whole food industry? I mean, I'm looking, for instance, personally, me, I'm not 100, 98% vegan, but also I have all the time to buy this plastic, which I don't want, but there's no alternative still. So how about that? Or is it still top secret?
So, well, for now, we have defined our focus areas on the most potential applications. And I find that it's very important in a startup that you also focus, because especially in the beginning, we had the tendency to really spread our resources by starting so many projects, because we got so many requests that, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And we started all doing everything. And soon we realized that, no, really, we need to focus and select carefully that what are the most useful applications for us. But of course, in the future, we are really aiming to have this material as a new standard in the sustainable field. But at the moment, we are also developing some new stuff. So having this like really carbon negative material range as next. But if you are referring to this very thin layered food packaging, that is not in our portfolio, at least for the moment, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, I think this is innovation much needed. Speaking about the consumer behavior, this is what I'm hearing a lot from people. I'm just annoyed by all this plastic, also on organic food, because this is, I understand the background is the process in the supermarket, but at the consumer end, this is not the experience you want. I'm curious because the question is also how to grow from the panel, how to grow a science-based startup. We heard a lot from Pontus also how important it is also and how to invest at the beginning and the early road and the first stages. I mean, just tell us, how did you start? I mean, you need to produce it anywhere. What about facilities? I mean, all this is industrial stuff. That's not just the garage and having 2 engineers putting in that, well, let's develop an app. I mean, that's a totally different league. How did it went?
Well, I was joking that actually it took a garage with a bunch of doctors, because we really did our first demos in a garage. But very early on, we went directly to the plastic industry. So we went to use the machines that plastic industry uses. And we had the innovation with the material, but we needed to test it in the real setting. So basically, I was calling through all these plastic manufacturers in Finland and trying to find someone crazy enough to let us into the factory and start experimenting with the machines. And yes, the first year was quite crazy because I was basically living next to an injection molding machine that you use to make these products factory. And of course, there were a lot of failures in the beginning. So I remember there was just, from the machine, there was just coming this pile of smoking residue coming out. And at times it felt really that maybe we don't get it to work. But then little by little, you make progress and you start to understand the industrial process and you start to understand what it needs. And I think this was key to what really then made us succeed. And the other thing was that very early on, we went directly to the customers. So Suvi was brave enough to take our demo jars and go to the customers and ask, is this something that you would like? Is this something useful for you? And in that way, we got directly the feedback that to which direction we need to develop the product and the material. So we sort of did it both on the customer side and we did it on the industry, so the mass scale manufacturing side. So I think that those two things were like behind the success as well.
Great, thanks. So that's interesting that it goes like that. So basically, this is how you build also the first pilot. In terms of raising funds, etc.
Yes, so basically what happened after we had the first demos, we entered quite many competitions in Europe and we won quite many of them as well. So we got this really nice positive publicity, and through that we actually got quite many inbound leads. For example, investors were coming to talk to us after some presentations or after they about our winning some award, for example.
Okay, that's interesting. So you made the case by that, and you also was quite successful in making noise in the market.
Yes, definitely. And I think, of course, then growing up, we needed to select carefully the team. So very early on, we realized with Suvi that, hey, we can't do everything by ourselves. So we really need help and we need professionals to do things that we don't perhaps have skills for. So I think we were very successful in building the team as well. And branding was also one aspect that we understood very early on, that you needed to make it very appealing.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that. I mean, my background is in branding and marketing, and I would immediately say, well, this is well done. Questions from the audience? Because if not, I also have a question. Pontus, do you have a question? I think you guys know each other.
Actually, I don't think we met earlier, so it's a pleasure to meet you, Laura, as well. I think that in any sort of sustainable case, you really need to show the numbers. There are a lot of startups claiming to be climate tech or claiming to be sustainable, but then in the really, really early stages, it's quite difficult to make a comprehensive lifetime climate assessment, for instance. So my question would be, I mean, how important was that for early stage investors that, or could you at the really early stage really show the numbers on how sustainable your solution was?
Yes, so from the beginning, we had this researcher type of aspect on it. So we started testing the different materials directly. We used VTT, we used other third-party laboratories, and through that we selected the best material combinations. And of course, it's very crucial to have these third-party proof and also certifications. And it often takes, especially for certifications, it takes really a long time. It takes 6 to even 12 months to get it. But we had a lot of lab data, and we also realized very early on that you need to start testing immediately when you have the different sort of iterations of the material demos. And from that, we were able to show and showcase that it's really sustainable in those ways that we say that it is. And we also did, I think it's very eye-opening to see the actual items degrade in the compost. So we did series of tests, or also in the small Kekkilä, which is making this industrial compost. So we called them again that, hey, this is Sulapak, we are interested to have our material in your industrial compost. And from there we got the actual pieces that you could see that they are degrading in an actual setting. But yes, I would say that the numbers are really important. And I think the market has evolved a lot in the 6 years that Sulapak has existed. And it is the trend that more and more you need to show the numbers, and you need to show the third-party proof and the certificates.
And I think it's really it's also really impressive. Like now you just published I think a couple of 1 or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was official that you launched what you mentioned, the collaboration with Chanel, right? So
yes.
well, I really think this is an impressive success story, and I'm waiting for the material for my weekend food to feel less bad about that, at least. So I was waiting if there are still questions from the audience, but for now there is nothing left to ask. Well, thank you so much, Laura and Pontus. I learned a lot. I hope the audience too. It was a pleasure having you. Good luck with the further growth of Sulapak and Voima Ventures. I will follow it closely for sure. And for the audience, one last remark. Well, we still have 3 sessions to go on the international track today, and some of you I will probably see, or hopefully see also in a couple of minutes, in a session on a totally different topic. On the comeback of night trains in Europe. And we will have the founder of the night train, European Sleeper from the Netherlands. Hope to see you there, guys. And thanks a lot again, Laura and Pontus. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you very much. And of course, hey, you can reach out through LinkedIn if you have any more questions about Voima or deep tech investing. And I enjoyed it a lot, so thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.